Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us on Opinion Court, and thank you for all the questions that you're sending in regarding the issue of drought, and we'll be getting to them very shortly with my guests. Let me introduce them to you. To my immediate right is Dr. John Mutunga. He's a member of Parliament's Agriculture Committee, and he, of course, is the Tigania West legislator. And as I mentioned to you, of course, Tigania being in the larger Meru is a priority 3 area in as far as this drought operations are concerned. Next to him is fellow legislator Hassan Oda from Isiolo North, and of course this is priority 1 level. This is where the alarm has been raised regarding the severity of the drought. And next to me is Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst. And next to him is James Odwor, the CEO of the National Drought Management Authority. And I thank you all for coming on the program. Hassan, I want to start with you because the area you represent is worst affected. Paint us a picture. What is the situation like?
Good evening, viewers. I think you are right. Actually, my constituency is Isiolo North, which is in Isiolo County. In the current drought is the worst affected. Basically, in terms of vegetation cover, I think it is the most deficit. Basically, what that means is that animals have no grass, have no browse. Browse basically are the leaves which the browsers feed on. Groundwater sources, surface water sources like ponds have dried up. Wasonyiro River, for better part of last year until yesterday, was dry. So even shallow wells along the river have dried up. The yield of boreholes have really gone down. And we have had for the first time, I think, in almost 3-4 decades, our people migrating out. In past droughts, the situation has been we receive our neighbors. Actually, we are blessed with one of the best rangelands in the Republic. But because of almost 4 consecutive rain failures, receiving below what we normally get, we are having a very serious situation. And you're talking about people migrating, but the surrounding areas are not doing much better. Well, where we are migrating to is not better than where they are migrating from. Basically, they are migrating to part of Wajir, which is not better off. Part of Marsabit, which is not better off. And therefore, I think the situation is so dire. Do you know how many, can you estimate how many families are on the move? Well, I think according to the latest estimation, around 103,000 individuals are food insecure. And that's probably around 14,000 households. Okay. So they're scattered all over. We only have, people in small settlements where animals have migrated. They used to rely on animals. And then the other very serious thing is the livestock market has collapsed. Even the few animals which are in from poor to fair body condition could not fetch much. What, if any, assistance has reached Isiolo North? I think from last year, when His Excellency declared drought a national disaster, we have received support from national government. For better part of last year, actually from around September up to December, immediately after we got elected, we were able to talk to national government, and for the first time, actually I would like to appreciate that we've had a situation where the government was tracking water for livestock. Okay. We had almost 30,000 heads of cattle which survived from around October last year up to end of December through water tracking. And this year? This year, I think the tracking has really gone down because people have, it's a very expensive exercise. If there's a relief item which is so expensive, it is tracking water. And more so when you are tracking for livestock. So people have had to migrate now to places where, in neighboring counties, there are places which has received some scanty rainfall during the past short rains, October, December. So because of that, the scale of tracking has really gone down. But on a smaller scale, the county is also, I think at the moment what is happening is small scale water tracking being done by the county government, especially targeting primary schools, because unless that is done, the food for feeding children in schools could not be cooked without water.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just get now the situation in Meru in general, if you don't mind, Dr. I know you represent Tigania West, but the Meru North area is one of those areas that is being watched closely. Your experience, it's not as bad as Isiolo?
Meru, good evening viewers. I come from Meru, and it's a bit, I think Meru is misplaced in terms of grading. Meru should be around the category 2 with very good reasons.
Okay.
5 out of the 9 constituencies are ASAL. They are largely ASAL in the sense that more than 2/3 of the area lies within actually in border Isiolo. There is what is called the Meru, the northern grazing land, which goes all the way. If you look at the map of Isiolo, it has a head, a neck, and a body. That protrusion which squeezes Isiolo to have a neck is Meru. That is in Tigania West, Tigania East, Igembe Central, and Igembe North. And also we have Bori, which borders Laikipia. All those sub-counties or constituencies are fairly dry most of the time. Right now, where I come from, people have received some rain, but the crop died when it was a knee-high, and they are already looking for food. Sometimes they go for about 4 seasons without getting any food. So they also rely on family relief. And because of the grading, then they fail to get enough sufficient supplies. So you have to keep on knocking at the doors of the government to try and get some more money. I mean, some more, family relief in terms of food. Also look at the organizations that are supplementing the efforts of the government. So Meru should be looked into. If you look at even Meru, and North Imenti, on the lower side, bordering Tharaka and the central Imenti, they also have dry parts. So actually, even the other one, even the South Imenti itself, all of them have got a portion of dry part. And those areas, people cultivate nothing.
And you believe the indicators should have it moved to level 2. James, maybe we could just start there. Let's talk about that grading system and how you arrive at the conclusion of which county is most food insecure, etc. And how did Meru end up, if you would explain a little bit.
There's something I may want to say before he speaks, because Meru is considered to be right in the Mount Kenya. They look at Nyambene Hills, and then presumably consider Nyambene Hills to be potential, and then Mount Kenya East to be potential. But it's a very small section comparing. And again, the populations are high. People have spread to the dry areas. Right. So they really need a lot of support.
Fair enough. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers. We look at very many indicators, 52. But I will not go to all those. I want to summarize. First of all, for each place, up to even below the sub-county, we have the baseline, where we say normally, under normal times when there's no drought, what is the situation like? So first and foremost, we look at water. Look at water in terms of distances to the main water points, in terms of the amounts consumed by the communities, in terms of quality. Then we look at another indicator is pasture. How is the pasture situation at any particular time, because we monitor the situation on a monthly basis. Thereafter, we look at the browse. After that, we look at issues of crop production, the area planted, the yields, the prices, the stocks kept in the houses, the prices in the market and everything. Then we look at all the livestock production, how it is. Then after that, after looking at the trade, how people generally get food and how people generally get cash.
So when you combine all these and more.
Then we look at the welfare, what are people eating at this time vis-a-vis. When we combine all those in a place, at any particular time, then we look at what the current situation in terms of all those indicators vis-a-vis what is supposed to be the mean. But the more they fall outside the mean, the more we categorize that the place is bad. For example, you are talking of Isiolo, talking of Tana River, we are talking of Kajiado, we are talking of even now Mandera. If you look at all those, you will find that those indicators are falling below the mean, maybe by a big percentage. They could be even 60–70% below the mean. So the lower they are below the mean, the worse the place. If they are very close to the mean, what usually they are, then the place is not bad. But remember, people sometimes confuse the drought situation with the normal dry spells. In a January like this, or February, or even part of March, even without drought, when the situation normal, sometimes places are dry, the people go far to get water. something like that. Another factor which makes, which brings a confusion, even without drought, you know, there's already poverty. People even without drought, some people even don't eat well. Some people even sleep hungry. So sometimes also there's a mixture of what has the drought really caused. Okay. And what is normally there even without drought. So we have to separate all those.
Fair enough, and I think that's a very elaborate explanation. But just very quickly, so of this 3.8 billion the government has made available in terms of assistance on different levels, how many families would you say have so far been reached with food and cash transfers?
If you allow me, Anne, I wouldn't want to start at that point, because if I start at that point, I'll be hiding a bigger picture where we have come from. But let me summarize this way. This problem started almost 2 years ago, 2016 July, and the government has been intervening. Phase 1, for example, November 2016 to January 2017, the total budget was 5.4 billion, which was required. The national government gave that money in total, and we intervened in water, in livestock, food, and everything. Another phase was February 2017 to April, to May actually, 2017. The budget was 11.6 billion, and the government gave 7.4 billion, hoping that the other stakeholders were also chipping in. Then the other phase was September last year to December, 4.2 billion the national government gave in total. Right now I come to what you are asking. This particular phase is phase 4, and this phase is February to April, and the total budget is 3.8 billion, covering most of those sectors. Food, actually food is taking the lion's share, 2.5 billion, all of this, and that's where we are right now. So you can see it's not a problem that started now. It started a long time ago. The government has been intervening.
Have been reached so far with food and cash transfers?
Every month, because food distribution every month, we are talking of 3.4 million people currently being reached in all these counties, even where the problem is not very big. Now, some of them get food, physical food. Some of them get cash. Like I know in 13 counties, 260,000 households are getting cash instead of food. Some places cash is better when the markets are working and the food is cheap. Sometimes physical food is better when the distances are long, when the markets are not working and the food is very expensive. So it depends on the situation.
Okay. Yeah. Prof, you've heard the billions that have been pumped over the years to mitigate a situation that has already developed, that has already unraveled. Would those billions have been better placed elsewhere to begin with?
Well, I think we are responding to an emergency. So these billions are an attempt to save a bad situation, hoping that nobody dies, because they are, you cannot think of the long term when people have no food. But even the use of those billions, we have issues about whether they have been used well or not. They could still be used in the long term to set up strategies to make sure that we mitigate this situation and we have a long-term program that produces enough food for the Republic. But that has not happened, Anne. And I would attribute to this, if you look at the drought that has hit most parts of the country, they are a reflection of our bad politics. That our politics is not based on issues, and that is why we have ended up like this. We never hold accountable our leadership when we go for elections, what they should do to make our life better. We vote for trivial reasons, including ethnicity, when we have this kind of problem. And this has been a persistent problem. Some people should be in jail, and if you look at the history of our country, 1974, we had a huge drought in this country, and people went without food. Government talked the same language as what you are hearing with the whole administration. We shall do something about it. And they had officers like my brother Odwar here, still talking the same language that we used to hear in 1974. In 1980, we had a similar problem, and it came here. Some people who are alive at that time will testify they ate yellow maize, which came from the United States. 4 years later, and we had a problem, 1984. It hit Ethiopia and even Kenya. We ended up with a drought-related famine and water shortages. 1990s the same. 94 was terrible, and from 94 onwards we have almost the gap between very difficult conditions like the famine, situation that we are facing now and the good times, the gap has narrowed. We are almost having it every year. But the promises you get from government are the same promises. So what you are lacking is politically, we are in this situation because of bad governance. We have had problems of trees, soil conservation. One time President Moi tried to use gabions to prevent soil erosion, and so it didn't work very well because it was not meant to be a long-term program, but it was a political showbiz, and it didn't achieve much. Now we are hearing that some of the reasons why we have this kind of weather, and it's true from the experts, is because the trees, the tree cover in Kenya has gone down, and it's below the UN approved 10% forest cover. Now, who destroys trees? The problem we have in this country is a political one. People talk about issues. When we have a problem, people rise. You see political meetings where people say, we are going to deal with everybody. It will not be business as usual. But the more they say it's not business as usual, the more the business becomes usual. And you know now, they're saying, forest cover has gone. We don't have enough food. There is enough money to do the mitigation, but there's no money to develop a long-term program. Why? Because even the people who are destroying our forests come from government. You know, you cannot invade a government forest and start cutting trees without being known. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President Ruto know who have destroyed our forests. They will talk about it. Even in 2013, they knew these people are not in jail. They still enjoy political support. Some are in parliament, some are in government. Nothing is being done. 10 years from now, or even 3-4 years from now on, you are going to get a similar situation. There is something in environmental politics which we call the tragedy of commons. People think that if I go to defecate in a river, my feces are so little, they will not pollute the river. And then another one comes doing the same thing. And then it piles into a serious environmental problem. Government officers who go into forests to sell our trees, cut trees, they say, this is just one tree, I'm doing it in Mount Elgon, Mount Kenya, but it won't do much. Then another one comes to do the small bits. Then you have a huge environmental problem to do that. And the final thing that I want to say there is because we don't follow the rule of law. This country, the weakest part of this country is that people don't follow the rule of law. Members of parliament, everybody, they manipulate the law to favor their own what? Their own interests. How many other things have we talked? Kenyatta National Hospital. There's a problem, you say, we shall deal with... I'm just giving you...
I get your point.
And then you have
there's no political will.
There's no political will. You have problems on the roads. People threaten that they will take action. You saw that when the accidents occurred, it's the same way. We have a problem of fire. People rush there and say, we shall solve this problem. Now the engines will have water. Nothing happens. I suspect now, once the rains come, this problem will be forgotten. We shall be on this television set again talking next year. And members of parliament are here. They will be saying, now we have pumped in 10 billion, trillion to do that. It is a terrible situation, Anne.
Okay, fair enough. You've made your point. Political will. A quick rejoinder.
Yes, I just want to defend the members of parliament. We actually don't go to... No, I will just be talking on that topic. We don't make laws to suit ourselves. There's no parliament in the world which does that.
You manipulate the law.
We do not make the law to suit ourselves. We don't manipulate the law. We do the law as per the guidelines, as for the problem that needs to be solved. So we look at really what needs to be done, and we deal with it.
We don't need to belabor the point, Dr. Mtunga, but let me ask you a direct question, because you are, of course, a member of the Agriculture Committee, and Prof has laid out the political issues, but there are also, if you like, some more scientific and common sense issues in terms of managing this situation. For instance, why are we failing to grow the right crop given our prevailing climate changes?
Okay, let me just pick it up from his point of forest cover. We all know, and scientists know very well, and we are very, very astute scientists in this country, that the desert is growing towards ourselves, towards the equator. So we have a lot more of desertification every year. We are having so many kilometers of the former, better ecological zone going towards zone 6, which is the desert. There are very many things that you can do to prevent that. Forest cover is one of them. and the standard is actually 10%. And we should also do what is called management of our forest resources, and not just harvesting, not logging and clearing. We should be able to manage. That we have failed as a nation, and I think it's not really rocket science. It's something that we can do to make sure that we are able to contain the desertification, so that it goes at a slower rate in view of the climate change, because of course we share a common climate across the world, and therefore where changes even occurring also will affect us. We should not be part of those who are destroying the fabric of our environment that will help us to
But sustain. We should also just be growing the right food, shouldn't we?
Let me come to food. Let me come to food.
Political issue, including what kind of crops we are growing?
Let me actually come to food, the food that we grow. This country has very elaborate research system and good scientists. And they have done a lot of research on which crops you should plant where. They have looked at the tolerance levels, and there's a lot of sensitization on what we should grow elsewhere. I think there is a problem at the uptake level, and it is brought about by levels of poverty, inability to buy what is required at the right time, inability to properly target the right time to plant, the right seed to buy, and also the right management of the crop on the farm. So where we need to look at... And whose
responsibility should that be?
Let me say it's a responsibility of all of us. One thing is a responsibility of the government to be able to give the correct information and make sure that it's distribution of the correct variety of seed in the right place and people are properly sensitized. It is a responsibility of the people themselves. But our failure is that everybody in Kenya qualifies to be a farmer. In a country that is at our stage, we should be able to know who actually a farmer is.
Dr. You know the problem? Where the problem comes from, and which you can pick up in Parliament, is this. While we think this economy should be run by agriculture because it's an agriculture-based economy, agriculture extension of services died. They are not accessible. Every time you hear budget being read, they say we are going to spend a lot of money. If you have your animals are sick, yes, you have to pay for it. We used to have these extension officers who can advise people even on the crops. Maybe there is information, but how does that information reach the people?
Yeah, okay. We have been going through what is called reforms in agriculture for quite a while to try and move ourselves from the direct support to agriculture on the farm to where people go for consultations. Then we have a few agriculturalists and then of course less expenditure in agriculture. However, I'm not disputing the fact that we do not support our agriculture adequately. Budgetary, we give agriculture very little. And I'm not saying that this is too difficult to do. This country has started engaging railway from Mombasa to Nairobi and proceeding on.
So it's a question
so it is possible.
Will.
It's actually a question of choices.
Okay.
If we really want to have food security, it's possible.
We would have had Hassan?
Yeah, I think I'd like to agree with what Professor said to some extent, because if we look at food security, we cannot be food secure unless we invest in research. As my colleague has said, probably what we are allocating to research is very little. And as a way of probably addressing that issue, the current government, the NAC government, the Jubilee government, under His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, has established a state department on agricultural research. And probably what is going to happen is that as parliamentarians, and my colleague sits on the Departmental Committee on Agriculture, we shall try to ensure that we allocate adequate resources for agriculture research. If you look at the research institutions in the country, for example, in our case, in the ASAL, the research institutions which are there, in Garissa we have beef research. It is poorly funded. The researchers are idle. They just draw salaries. You go to Marsabit, the same thing. So the moment we invest, we improve, allocation of resources to research, and then these researchers, whatever comes out of research gets to the farmers. Probably that will partly solve the problem we are having.
It's a question of will, very clearly. But James, let me come to you, because you run the National Drought Management Authority. What does a permanent solution to a situation like this look like?
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to mention that as far as ending drought emergencies, ending the worst sufferings of drought in future is concerned, the government has a strategy. 10-year strategy. We started around 2013. It was part of MTP2, MTP3, signed by the national, county government, and other stakeholders as a strategy, as a way forward. Now, what that strategy says is that you look at the bigger picture. what we are seeing, the problem is the vulnerability and the low resilience. It is the incapacity of the communities to deal with the drought. So if you do something so that the communities have capacity to deal with it, all these things will be okay. It is so many things, not only crops, not so many things. So that strategy looks at the bigger picture and starts this way. There's a whole pillar of peace building and conflict management. And if you go there, you need to do so many things, because in some places, it is the peace that prevents people from doing their work. Sometimes there are conflict because of scarcity of resources. If resources are many, then you reduce those ones. Then another pillar, a huge one, infrastructure. You need the roads. You need the agricultural infrastructure. You need health infrastructure. You need the electricity. You need all this. If you do that, you are creating an enabling environment. Some people, yes, can survive on that crop with research. Some people may work. Some people may do other things. Some people may trade. Food may flow in, something like that. Then we have another pillar. We are calling it sustainable livelihoods. People who can survive through livestock, fine. You create an environment, you explore the potential so that they can survive there. People who can do irrigation, people who can do other things, rain-fed agriculture can survive there. There are also people who can do business, value addition. There are also people who can work. Then we have also another huge pillar we are calling human capital. You need people to be educated, especially in those areas. Then they can do other things, which can bring money. You also need health and nutrition. All these things. And
it sounds quite detailed.
So it's a big picture. It doesn't narrow down to crops or those small things.
Fair enough, but Prof
it is missing on the most important.
Prof has been smiling through everything you're saying. The minute you said we have a 10-year strategy, he started smiling. Why?
I was smiling because it is the popular talk, the 1970 talk, which has endured the test of time up to now. He's talking the same stuff. Which really...
But is it wrong to have a plan?
No, you know, the point is, let us get the basics right. And those plans are good plans, but you must start with the basics. Environmental preservation is critical. I come from Bungoma. The people of Bungoma don't know what is happening in Mount Elgon Forest. And if you go there as members of parliament, I think the deputy president should have told you guys to go before he announces. You'll find that government officers are involved in logging in Mount Elgon. There are so many rivers, you know, that area, which flow into Lake Victoria. Come to Mount Kenya. The same story is in Mount Kenya. And now you have seen the rivers in Muranga, in parts of, they have that dry. So
you see the same government that is planning to stop,
yes, it
should stop itself.
It should stop itself.
Can I say something?
Because these are resources which are guarded by us.
Can I say something?
No, so these are basics we can do.
Can I?
Just let me finish, my brother. Okay. You are doing the other technical part, but you must start. you must start with the basics, so that people say, if there is an environmental officer who has allowed people to start cultivating next to the river. This is a duty that can be done by government and it can be enforced because the laws are there. We haven't done the right thing. And in terms of rating in Africa, Kenya is the poorest in observing the rule of law. So, and the first people who break the law are government. Okay, the people who break the law are government.
You've made your point. Quickly, gentlemen, because you must wind up. There's been, over the years, billions spent in CDF. Resources that go to, you know, those basic interventions, the water pans, etc., that could help counties, or rather constituencies, be more food secure. What is your own responsibility in terms of being the first port of call to ensure that your own constituencies are food secure?
First of all, CDF is guided by law. There is nothing that goes towards food security. Food CDF is basically targeted at security and education. So unless something is related to security and education, then will you be in... Is
food not related to security in many of these counties? Is that not what people are fighting over?
It is actually making sure that the security system of the state is secure. You are able to get them housing. They are a little bit comfortable. You are putting in police posts and other places, I mean, and other things. Then you are also supporting education in terms of constructing classes and so on and so forth. If it's something related to, then that is the law. Now, let me mention something that I heard was not in that strategy and which sorted the problems.
Answer my question. You're the area member of parliament. Do you believe you have any responsibility as being a first
Exactly, and I would do it differently.
Please
personally, I would first of all manage what the people are producing right now. I think the greatest thing that Kenyan farmers suffer is losses as a result of producing at the same time, going to the market at the same time, being so poor that they need to buy a few things. They have debts, they have school fees, they have children who are sick. They need money immediately. So the prices are driven from whatever is possible to the lowest level possible. Right now, in some parts of this country, they're selling a kilo of maize at around 15 shillings. The cost of production, 15 shillings, if you multiply by 90, is around 450 shillings. Then, I mean, if you multiply by 90, I think it's 1350. If you look at the cost of production is 2150. So the farmer is losing that much. And this is going to whoever buys, they pay them to consume. What we need to do is manage the markets. First of all, make sure that whoever produces of the farm gets back enough money to be able to go back to the farm and farm. That's the first one. The second thing that we are trying to do in this country is invest in agriculture and organize the agriculture itself. Yeah. Agriculture is not organized. Yeah. Farmers on their own, they are trying whatever they want to try. We have systems that can easily put farming into context. Yeah. Zone out areas and say, this, we are going to produce beans here. And then everybody produces beans. They do it correctly, the way it's supposed to be done, using the agronomic, following the agronomy as supposed to be. After that, then we have market for that, because we have sufficient market, but we've not invested in organizing the farmers, and also we have not invested in
sounds like everything professing about political will, because then who is supposed to do that, Who's supposed to do that? Hassan, you want to make a point?
Yeah, apparently I happen to represent a constituency which is worst affected at the moment. Definitely, as you have rightly put it, we are the first. When things happen, people get to us because they have put us in a position where we address their concerns. Unfortunately, the National Government CDF Act does not allow us to allocate any money to food security related issues. But as legislators, as people who actually allocate resources to ministries, we make sure that whatever different government agencies hold and agriculture, livestock, and so on and so forth, reaches our people. For instance, in my case, it is the issue of saving people and saving their livestock. If we only concentrate on saving lives, after drought, what happens if they have lost all their animals? And therefore, personally, I've made a lot of efforts to make sure that I follow up whatever is allocated to State Department of Livestock to ensure that livestock feeds are delivered to my people so that the livestock is saved. I followed up to make sure that the food which is supposed to get to school, and then personally as MP, I concentrate on ensuring that kids will not drop out of school for lack of fees.
Right, and even lack of food, right?
Yes.
We're out of time, unfortunately. Certainly we needed a whole lot more time to just even begin to scratch the surface on this. And my apologies, I can see all of you have something extra to say. But I'm told it's a wrap. We'll certainly have you back here. As we've heard, this is not, unfortunately, it's not a situation that's going away soon. But I thank you for your time and
can I wrap up 1 second?
For your views. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
I absolutely can't.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
Okay. Thank you.